So now we will begin. Good evening, everyone. This is the third session of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology. We have been conducting two sessions. We have been conducting this session since February 14th. This is called PACT 21. That is mainly it's called Program for Academic Counseling and Training. This is focused on fine-tuning the students and helping them write the examinations peacefully. Like on 14th of February, we had a session on how to manage stress and anxiety. On 21st of February, we had a session on how diets and hormones affect the thinking process. So that way we can control our thought process by controlling our diets and knowing what is happening within our body, but knowing about our hormones and how they impact us. And today we have a session on how to score better in examinations. So studying, students are studying, teachers are teaching, they are putting all their heart and soul into all this. But then ultimately, sometimes it does not turn out to be a good result. So students will have to go do some techniques. They will have to follow some techniques so that they can, whatever they have studied, they will be able to convert that into grades and marks. So today we have that session will be handled by Dr. Priya Sri Mahadevan today, who is the director of Ahalya Group Academic Institutions, and he is also the principal of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology. He is a renowned academician with more than 38 years of academic experience in the school. So he has a lot to share. He has been dealing with students day in and day out, and he has a lot to share based on his experience. So I welcome all of you for this wonderful session. And I would like to also inform you that today being the National Science Day, the Department of Science and Humanities of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology is conducting a science quiz. It is on, I will share the Google Form link of that. So students can participate in that. Students who score more than 50% marks will be issued an e-certificate. So that link also I will share in between the session. And your feedback is what helps us improve in every endeavor that we take up. So I will also share the Facebook link of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology. We would like to hear your feedback, positive, negative, areas of opportunities. Whatever you want to share with us, please do share in our Facebook page so that it will help us improve. Rather than most of the time we take feedback, but then we want it in a real-time manner. That is the reason I would be sharing the Facebook link of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology also in between the sessions. So please do take some time of yours to help us improve our events, upcoming events too. And now I move on to Mahadevan sir. So please come forward and give us an amazing session. Students and teachers are impatiently waiting for you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bindu. A warm good afternoon or rather good evening to all the participants. We have got students of schools, first year students of college, some parents, some teachers, even from UAE. I welcome all of you to this session on how to score better in the examinations. I've got a PPT prepared, but I won't be showing it right now because after my oral presentation, I'll be showing the PPT. Because in the session itself, I'll be explaining that our sensory organisms cannot effectively work parallelly. So the brain has got a very good parallel processing capacity. If you are seeing something, listening will have secondary effect only. Only one of them can work effectively. That's why I'm not showing the PPT right now. I'll show the PPT at the end. Right now, you can listen to me for half of the time. And instead of pinning on the PPT, you can pin on to me. You can even witness my expression so that may be the first part of the learning. How to score better in the examinations is our concern. Final examinations are coming next month in most of the boards, universities. Some university examinations have already started. Most of our board examinations are in March or April. Many of the competitive examinations are coming. So students and their parents are equally concerned about how to appear for the examination, how to score better in the examination, etc. I'm talking these things from my own experience, from the experience of my children, and from the experience of my colleagues and students. So it's not much of a bookish knowledge. It is much of something which is experienced and observed. So it's a real life experience which I'm going to tell. And moreover, for a long period, I've been the chairman of the Board of Studies and Board of Examiners of the university. So all such cases regarding examination, I had to take decisions. So at that time, some insights into how the examination system is working, how the students do appear, all these things were of concern to us. So based on that, I will be telling you these simple things, very easy to understand, equally applicable to school students and college students, and even up to research scholars. First thing is, why do you write the examination? Because people cannot be equated everywhere. They have to be graded because based on the grades, we'll have to give a better job, we'll have to give better pay, we'll have to give better position like that. So examination is a system for grading the people. But there again comes a question whether examination is a quite competitive method for grading because, say, the mood on the day of the examination, the physical condition of the candidate on the day of the examination, the environmental effects, all these things will contribute to it. But what else is there to grade? There is only one way to grade, and that is examination, whether written or oral or practical or performance. These are the four ways of examination: written examination, oral examination, which we call as the Viva OC, practical and drawing examinations, which are mostly there in engineering streams, and performing but demonstrating examinations, which are mostly there in arts and performing arts. So these are the four ways which we can test a candidate. Obviously, these four systems are also used for interviews also. Most of the interviews will have a written part and then an oral part. A vis-a-vis interview part will be there. So these are the methods by which we can grade a candidate to decide the prospect of a candidate. Of course, basically all the examinations are basically a test of memory testing. Secondly, it is a test for understanding whether the candidate has analyzed what he has learned. That is a test of understanding. The third thing is whether the candidate can have a vision of what he has understood. What is its use? That is the logic part of it. And finally, whether the candidate can apply. We call it as the Bloom's taxonomy, where different levels, 5 levels are assigned to the examinations. I'm not going into Bloom's taxonomy because school students or school teachers may not be able to understand it. But in colleges and all, we teach the teachers what is a Bloom's taxonomy, up to which level the students should be asked the question whether it is Bloom level 1 or Bloom level 2, like that. So basically, all the exams are meant for testing the memory, testing the understanding, testing the logic, and testing the application capability of the candidate. But truly, most of our examinations are memory tests. Very rarely, especially in practical examinations, we may test the other things. But most of our theory examinations are basically a test of memory. Very rarely in some competitive examinations, it will go from a test of memory up to a test of logic, or sometimes even a test of understanding. But application part, of course, we can have in the practicals only. And now, going by these things, one thing is sure: memorizing is very important in any examination. Rather, I'll say 90% of the attributes will be to memory. So students have to memorize. The first thing is how to memorize for the examination. Then we will see how to reproduce better in the examination. So even if you memorize well, if you are unable to reproduce, you will not score well, because scoring is an art. Learning is a skill, scoring is an art, and that art also we have to master. So I will be discussing here first how to memorize better, how to apply it in the examination, and how to score better. And obviously, this has to be practiced by the students, and maybe the teachers can hand over this information to the students. And practicing is not as easy as it is told. There has to be a concerted effort on the side of the students and parents to make sure that the students are practicing this. And let us see how this can be done one by one. First, let us see what is memory. Memory is an ability of a person to store and retrieve the information, to store in the brain. Brain is what stores memory. And to retrieve it, to take it back at the time when it is needed. If you store so many things and if you are unable to take it back, then it is not an effective memory. I used to tell my students, if you studied 10 things and you can reproduce only one thing, you are failing. Instead, if you are studying 5 things, you can reproduce 4 things, your effectiveness is almost 80%. So that is the first thing the students have to understand. It is not whether you study a lot. The question is how much of that part you have studied you can reproduce. If you can reproduce only 10%, it's very low. If you can reproduce 90%, sometimes the candidates may be able to reproduce even 100%. 100% is actually a machine learning capacity. Machines can reproduce 100%. Human beings, for that matter, always unable to reproduce 100% because human memory is a biological memory. Biological memory in the sense it's not like the PN junctions in the computer. Human memory is the brain cells which are suspended in brain water. In brine water means salt water. Human brain is in salt water, roughly 1.3 liters of around 1.25 kg. That means the density of the brain is less than 1. Almost 1.25 kilogram will be in 1.3 liters. So that is why density is less than 1. It is so it will float in water. So it is floating in brine water, salt water. So brain is having brine water where the brain is floating. So it's a biological mechanism where so many cells are there. These cells we call as the neurons. Last session, I think Dr. Ramalingam was telling about neurons. Neurons are basically brain cells. They are connected on all sides by synaptic connections, which are having connecting points at the axiom. So brain is nothing but millions and millions of cells interconnected parallelly, not serial connection. Most of the electronic connections are serial connections, but brain is a parallel connection. That is why brain can do parallel operations. Parallel processing is best possible by brain. The reason is that one side of the brain you can have a dream, another side of the brain you can use for thinking, and another side of the brain you can use for driving. You know, those who drive will be knowing that even when you are driving, you can think of so many things because brain can have the capacity of parallel processing. So memorizing is an operation of the brain. We have to memorize a lot of things every day, and understanding something and reproducing it, taking out is what we want. So memorizing is basically input something into the brain, get it processed there, let it occupy the brain cells, and getting it back from the brain. This is what is a memorizing possibility, and whoever is an expert in that, expert in the entire operation. Entire operation means everybody will be good in putting into the brain, but very less of them, very few of them will be able to take it back. It is just like putting in a bottle with a small neck and taking out is almost impossible. This happens to many. I've seen students studying for hours and hours, but then when they want to take it out, they fail in it. So it's not just putting into the brain, taking out of the brain is also an equally active process. And we have got 5 sensory mechanisms which puts the signals into the brain. And out of them, only 2 are very effective in learning, especially in academics. That is the visible mechanism and the listening, that is auditory mechanism. We have got, of course, by science, people say the most effective in Mahabharata, Vyasa says to his disciples that the most effective sensory mechanism in the body is the tactile system, the skin. That is true. All the senses we get mostly by skin. But for learning purpose, learning by skin or learning by the olfactory mechanism, smelling mechanism is very difficult. So learning by the eye, that is a visual mechanism, and learning by the ears, that is auditory mechanism. These are the 2 effective mechanisms which are good for memorizing. Obviously, in the practicals, it is different. When it comes to practicals, all the senses will work, whether it is the auditory mechanism, whether the visual mechanism, the olfactory mechanism, and even the tongue, the tasting mechanism. Some biological things that all we taste and desire its quality. So, say for example, while cooking, the tongue is the sensory mechanism which works, which sends message to our brain. So all these mechanisms are good, but for studying purpose, visualizing and listening are the most effective one. That's why there is an old saying: I hear, I forget; I see, I understand; I see, I believe; I do, I understand. So understanding part comes mostly from physical interaction with the thing. That is why in many of the studies, practicals are having the higher importance, especially in medical streams, engineering streams, the practicals are having the more important, because by doing something, we are really learning that thing. That is one part. But for the examination purpose, especially theory examination purpose, we have to resort to memorizing by reading, that is visualization, and by listening, that is by hearing from the teachers or hearing from a media or hearing from some new tools like the Gmeet or the YouTube, whatever it is. These are the two mechanisms which can help us. And of course, the sensory mechanism have got some buffering system. Buffering system in the sense, really speaking, only one sensory mechanism works at a time, though we don't know it, because the time gap or the time lapse between sensory mechanism reception is very less. I still remember when I was a school student, we used to go for scouting in the forest. In the forest, we have to make the tent, and people will be sleeping inside the tent. So two people on rotation basis will move around the tent, ringing a bell, a very high sound bell. The purpose of this is when the bell is rung in very high sound, the snakes cannot focus onto their movement. They will just listen to it and stay there. So that was a deterring mechanism for the snake. Similar is the mechanism for human being, but a slightly developed thing. Yeah, all our sensory mechanisms will be recording, but very few focus will be going to the secondary mechanism. For example, if you are listening something very well, your visual mechanism will be a bit impaired. If you are visualizing very effectively, your listening mechanism will be a bit impaired. That is why it is advisable that only one mechanism is utilized at a time. So when the teacher takes the class, when the teacher writes on the board, the students can see the board. But when the teacher explains, the students should not see the board. In that case, they cannot make their sensory mechanism work. So putting in, I still remember when I was a school student, I used to read very rarely at home, but in the classroom, I always used to listen 100%. But that was enough for me. I always felt that if I listened to the class, that time the school syllabus was not as high as this. If I listened to the class totally, it was not necessary even to read the books later, because that auditory mechanism will grasp everything that is needed. And of course, only in certain subjects like mathematics and all, you have to be careful about seeing on the board also. So this is how the mechanism works. And as I told, it is better that you make one mechanism to work at a time, because if you make more mechanism to work at a time, the listening capacity of the students will be lost. So always it is better that make the listening mechanism, auditory mechanism work first, and then the visual mechanism work second. In very rare cases, you want to give a visual idea, it is better the visual mechanism works first and the auditory mechanism works second. But remember, while the students are reading the textbook, this auditory mechanism cannot work. Only the visual mechanism work. So in reading, most of the students get their input through reading, and this reading input will go to the brain and gets recorded. So in that point of view, it is better that this buffering system of the mechanism need not be used much. Better we use the visual mechanism. Visual mechanism is also called the iconic memory mechanism. By seeing something, it gets recorded into our memory. Whereas if it is for sound, that is listening, we call it as the echoic memory system. Echoic memory system means by listening, it is going and recording. But we have got the haptic memory system. I think these terms are good for the teachers. That's why I'm mentioning the haptic memory system. It stimulates a touching stimulus. Say, for example, in mechanical workshop, in thermal workshop, we may tell the students just to touch the thing, because they can know what is the heat generated there. In some of the chemical reactions, if it is an exothermic reaction, the teacher will tell the students in the chemistry lab, please touch the test tube and see what is temperature on the test tube, because that will make them feel that the temperature has gone high in an exothermic reaction. So that is what is the haptic mechanism. This goes to the memory, and that is why we have the old saying, a cat which has gone to the hot water always will be hesitant to jump into the cold water, because the haptic memory system of the cat will be working on it. And then coming to the next part of the memory system, attention is possible only in one sense. Attention, you can listen to, you can see, you can sense many things. Say, for example, in the room you are sitting, some foul smell is coming, you can sense it. Somebody is showing a film, you can see it. Somebody is talking, you can see, you can listen to it, but only one will get recorded properly in your brain. That is attention. The other things will be just observed. The sensory mechanism will be working. That is why when you are talking to someone and when you are seeing a film, only one will, either you will remember the film or you will remember what the person has told. This is why the attention mechanism of the brain will work only one way. That is why I am saying that whenever the students are attending the class, make sure you are listening to the teacher. At that time, don't waste time on seeing things or exploring other things. Just listen to the teacher. Once the teacher has taught fully or talked about that matter, you can see the PPT or you can see the drawings. That will be the better system. Otherwise, your sensory mechanism will fail. And I always feel that a good student is the student who focus on one sensory mechanism at a time. But also you see that the fatigue of a sensory mechanism is very high. Fatigue means when you are exposed to the same stimuli for a long duration, we call it as a fatigue. Say you are listening for 15 to 20 minutes, your listening capacity will get reduced. That is called the listening fatigue. If you are seeing something for 20 minutes or more, your seeing or visualizing capacity will get reduced. That is called the visual fatigue. Similarly, in any sensory organism, say you are tasting something continuously, it will be difficult for you to taste something else. So this mechanism is there for the brain because all the sensory organs are connected to the brain. So anybody who wants to improve the memory, students, keep in mind, if you want to improve your memory capacity, do it alternatively. That is, listen something, then after 10 or 15 minutes see something or read something. Then after 10 or 15 minutes, if you don't want to read that, go to, say, you can just see what is happening around you. If you are sitting in a good nature or environment, you can just look outside for 2-3 minutes. The brain will get refreshed because the brain fatigue can be avoided by just changing the settings. But by just changing the sensory stimuli that you are getting, whether it is visual, auditory, or visual or tactile sense you are getting, just changing that sense will better the functioning of your brain, because whether it is auditory fatigue or visual fatigue, ultimately it is the brain fatigue. So keep in mind, students, the point of what I have been telling so far is, if you are reading to something, have a break at, say, 15 or 20 minutes. If you are teaching something, have a break, say maybe 10 minutes the teacher has told. After that, the teacher can show something. I doubt whether in online that is possible, because in online, showing something frequently, again coming back to the oral session, will have some difficulty. But that also we can see whether it is possible. And obviously, exchanging this mechanism should be better for your memory. So any studious student, I have done a lot of research on this mechanism long back while studying, that read something for 10-20 minutes, then listen something for 5 minutes, or then again you can relax, say 2-3 minutes. But only thing is, our difficulty, I used to tell my students, if you go away from your seat, very difficult to come back to your seat. That we have to be very careful. So you can have the arrangement on your seat itself for all these things. Your reading books can be there, your music system can be there, and if the TV operation also you can do from there, nothing harm. But only thing is, after 5 or 10 minutes, you have to come back to the input mechanism which you have been using earlier. That is, which have been the input mechanism would have been, say, reading a book, or listening to a GMET recording, or listening to some edX speech, whatever it is. You have to come back to that. Otherwise, our accessing system will fail. And obviously, our brain has got a different accessing system. We have got what is called a rapid accessing system, which will store the material. The rapid system will store the things in your brain for maybe around 70 minutes only. So something, say for example, you are seeing a cricket match. Immediately, one person is batting, one batsman is batting, another batsman is batting. Maybe they are out and the third batsman is coming, but your brain can read this because you are storing all these things in only a rapid access system. By the end of the match, when the match is over, you may remember only glimpses of those things. That is a difficulty in rapid access system. But in these things may decay within around 2-3 hours. Whatever you access within rapid access system will decay soon. So while reading the things, keep in mind how the brain works in storing things. You have to be aware of. Brain has got different waves. Brain is having alpha waves, beta waves, gamma waves, delta waves. medical practitioners will be able to tell about it. Alpha waves are there when the brain is working very slowly. Beta waves are there when the brain is working slightly excited. Gamma waves, the brain is, this you can measure actually by what is called an electroencephalogram, EEG. You can measure this brain waves very easily. Medical hands do know how to measure these wavelengths. By measuring the wavelength, you can measure whether your brain is having alpha, beta, gamma, delta waves. Delta waves are the most excited waves. Means delta waves, the eve of the examination, you will be having mostly delta waves. Or when you are writing the examination, your brain waves may be delta waves or gamma waves. Alpha waves will be there when your brain is bit calm and cool. That is why people say study the things well in advance so that your brain waves will be in a very, very pacified mode, which is the alpha wave. So instead of studying the thing on the day before the examination or 2 days before the examination, if you can study these things well in advance in the sense, say 1 week before the examination or 1 month before the examination, or the right system which the teachers say study on the day it is being taught. That time your brain waves will be an alpha wave system, and in alpha waves, if your brain is receiving something, the decay rate, the half-life period is more. Half-life period means for anything stored in the memory, there is what is called a half-life period. In the alpha system, the half-life period may be sometimes years and years. Say, I will be able to recite the points which I have studied in the first standard because it went in the alpha stage. But sometimes I may not be able to reproduce some equation or some statement which I have studied at my PG or PhD level because I would have sometimes studied that in the gamma or delta stage. That is why many of you have studied in the school days, you can recite that. The reason is in school days we don't have any stress, we don't have any tension. Your brain works in the alpha wave system. Moreover, in the kids who don't have much concern, the brain works in the alpha wave system. And in the alpha wave, if it is there, it gets recorded well and you can reproduce for years and years. That's a saying. It's not well established that the things which you studied in the delta stage or gamma stage will not remain for a day, maximum for 2 days. Whereas the alpha stage, it can remain for years and years. So I tell the students, many students I have heard saying, I'll study on the eve of the examination. Well and good. Maybe if you study on the eve of the examination, you'll be able to reproduce the next day, that only partially, because your memory is short-living memory when you study on the eve of the examination. But the thing is, you will forget it fully after the examination. It's of no use to you in the future or in life. And remember, how much you learned is of no relevance. How much you remember is for relevance, is the only relevance in your career and profession. If I have to say I'm knowledgeable, I should be able to reproduce anything which I know. If you have read thousands and thousands things and just reproduce the next day, it's not contributing to your memory. Rather, it is contributing to your examination marks only. That too limited, because anybody who studies in the alpha stage will clarify the doubts. They'll just clarify whether the thing.
So you're not on mute. You're on mute. Mahadevan sir, you have gone on mute. Okay, now it's
Yeah, the mute button has been pressed unknowingly. I have muted only just now, no?
yes, sir. 2
Okay.
seconds.
Okay. So I think now I've covered some of the oral portion. I want you to display the PPTs. PPTs will have something more than what I've told here. I just want you to show the first few slides, maybe around 10 slides I would have talked. You can just show it and we will discuss that. Then I'll come to the remaining slides so that you will have a feeling of the oral presentation and the visual presentation.
Okay,
Please
sir.
show the slides from.
Sure, sir. And I will also share the link of our National Science Day quiz. So they can save the link and do the science quiz after the session.
Okay, share the first 10 slides, I think. Around 10 slides I would have talked now.
I've gone on mute. I'm sorry.
Bindu, you are
yeah. I've come back, sir. Now I have shared the link of the National Science Day quiz organized by the Department of Science and Technology of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology. I request the participants to please save this link so that you can do the science quiz after the session is over. Now I will share the PowerPoint presentations, the slides of the PPT. Just a moment. Hope these slides are visible to all of you. So is the slides visible to you?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, now go to slide 2.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, this I have told. What are the types of examinations and what is basically the meaning of exams? Just read it. 4 types: written, oral, practical, performing. And basically the exams are test for memory, understanding, logic, and application. Next slide, please. Now, what's memory? This also I have mentioned. Memory is the ability to store and retrieve information, and most of our daily activities depend on memory. And of course, the human capabilities and limitations of human memory, we have to discuss one by one. How does the memory work? How do we remember? Why do some people remember more easily? These are the things which we are going to discuss. Next slide. Memory, of course, 3 types of memory functions are there. Sensory memory, which are the input coming from the sensory mechanism. Short-term memory. Short-term memory are the response to the brain, response by the brain to the sensory memories. And obviously, the last thing is what is long-term memory. Long-term memory is basically by selection. Selection means only those things which our brain wants to record, it will record. Remaining things will be lost in transmission. That is what is called the brain transmission loss. Okay, see the next slide. I told that sensory memory is a buffer system. A buffer system in the sense sensory memory, like the 5 sensory mechanisms I told, they just transfer the memory to the brain. And of course, a sensory memory exists for each sensory channel. All the 5 sensory mechanisms are having sensory channel. These channels are connected directly to the brain. And as you know, the number of neurons dealing with visual memory is the highest. So if your impact by seeing is around 80%, by listening it will be only around 20%. But by tactile, it will be more. But tactile mechanism, though it is the highest number of neurons are connected to the tactile mechanism, the tactile mechanism is meant for specific purpose only, mostly for essential purposes, not for memorizing purposes. See the next slide. So there are examples of iconic memory I have given. When you are seeing a fireworks, it comes into your mind as a as a picture, as a view, as a panoramic vision. That's all. But echoic memory, something which plays back in you. Such things are called the echoic memory. It comes frequently to you. For example, if you see a horrifying scene, you see a very horrifying scene, that will come again and again to your memory because the brain has got a peculiar system to echo some memory. It gets into the echoic memory. Anything which causes shock. That is why some people get mad by some memories. Brain has got this peculiar mechanism. Anything which causes a bad memory or a shocking memory will get echoed. Next one, please. Then I told that only information passed from sensory memory into short-term memory will be the attention. And at a time, only one sensory mechanism will take your attention. If you are having so many sensory, see all the 5 sensory mechanisms are working, one sensory mechanism will immediately take the attention. And that, say for example, you are talking to someone and you are seeing the TV, maybe all of a sudden you may not be listening to what the person is saying, you focus on the TV. Because that sensory mechanism, the visual mechanism, has taken over. See the next slide. And one more thing in the first slide, I have mentioned at the end, don't overload your sensory mechanism. It's not good. Nowadays, scientists do say that overloading your sensory mechanism may lead to some brain disorders like Alzheimer's. So you are trying to listen something, see something, do something, touch something, sense something, don't do parallelly because your sensory mechanisms may get damaged. And obviously, the cocktail party phenomenon is you are talking to some people and you are seeing something or listening something else. That is called the cocktail party phenomenon. It is telling the limitation of the sensory memory because only one system can work properly. See the next one, short-term memory. Short-term memory, it acts like a scratch pad. Short-term memory, especially the memory stored in the delta or gamma stage of the memory. Delta and gamma stages are characterized by certain wavelength and frequency of the brain waves. You know that brain is having electric power. Death means basically the electric capacity of the brain is stopping. That is a medical definition of death. Some people will be in coma stage, but they will not be still declared dead. Why? Because as long as the brain is having the electric power, the brain electric voltage will be roughly less than zero point 0.2 volt. But that zero point 0.2 volt is enough. So in a day, the brain may use around 20 watts maximum 20 watts, not more than that. But it may be much less than that, especially in the case of people don't think much. The brain usage of power will be very less, very less. But its electric potential is much less. A small battery, a small torch battery may be 2 volts, but the brain voltage is only zero point 0.2 volt. So it's having only less potential. Potential difference is less, but energy can be maximum 20 watts in a day. Whereas some of the computers will have to use billions of watts to operate that much process, especially parallel process. Now I'll start my oral discussion again. Then we'll come back to PPT. So I don't want all the PPT. So I think you have heard now something and you have seen the PPTs. Now let us go back to my oral presentation. I'll be discussing some of the things which are important for the students. How you can make your memory better. That is our concern because we are going to take out things from our memory. And if we want to take out things from our memory, the memory has to work effectively. So making the memory work effectively is what is called the memory techniques. First memory technique is avoid distractions. Avoid distraction in the sense when you are studying something, choose a place where the distractions are minimum. This is very necessary in our homes nowadays because TV will be operating at one place, music will be operating at one place, mobile will be playing at one place. And remember, when a student is studying, it is better to avoid these distractions because these distractions will take away the attention of the brain. So these parents also have to be very careful. Don't let your children saying that I'll see the TV. So you don't have to teach them. You don't have to guide them, but you have to ensure that they are having a good environment. That is why I have asked the parents also to join this session because this distraction will reduce the memory. And the second thing is the time of the day is very important. Some brains work better in the early morning. Some brains work late night. But in general, it is being told that the brains work better in the early morning. In Upanishad, it says that the brain works better in the Brahma Muhurta. Brahma Muhurta means it's around 4 o'clock, 3 to 4 in the morning, where the temperature is the lowest on the earth. That is called the Brahma Muhurta. In Prashna Upanishad, it is told that the Brahma Muhurta is the best time for studying. But I have never followed that. Always I have been a late night study person and I preferred late night because my body rhythm was like that. But I don't insist on anything. Even my children also have been late night study people. I have felt that maybe they would have followed what I have been using. But I still suggest if you can get up in the early morning, start your studies from the Brahma Muhurta, it is better because people have written it out of experience only. But whatever it is, choose a time which is more comfortable for you. Whether it is early morning or whether it is late night, choose the time which is more comfortable for you. And of course, your comfort level is also very important. Ensure the environmental comfort also. Environmental comfort means, say, for example, the light. The light, medical science says that when the light is coming from your right side, your memory works better. I don't know what is the reason. They have studied with light coming from the front side, from the right side, from the left side. And the studies ultimately concluded that a light, that too they advise, better light, like the tube light or LED light or something, not incandescent light. The light is coming from the right side, it is better for the brain, it says. So try that. And don't sit in bright light and study. Daylight is not advisable for studying because if you sit on the daylight outside, and study, your eyes will get tired faster. The more energy of the light, the eyes will get tired. So don't sit directly under the sun and study. Even if you have to study something outside, go and sit in a shade and you should study. And then you should avoid all mental stress while studying. So memory will work better when the unwanted hormones are not there. We would like to have better hormones. Last session we had on hormones. So don't have a cortisol or adrenaline in your body. Better have a oxytocin or dopamine in your body, the better hormones. And of course, last session we had a discussion on how these hormones can be generated. The doctor, the medical hand was saying that by taking a cup of milk and a banana, your body hormones can be better. Even chocolates can do better. He was saying that everything which is rich in protein is better for good hormones. So avoid being angry, avoid fighting with people, avoid, or you can rather neglect such things which will make negative hormones, so that the brain will work better for the memory. And the most important thing is, if you want to memorize something properly, you should have an interest in it. Because I told that memory is just like a bottle with a neck. That neck will open only if you have interest. So if you don't have interest in a subject, it is very difficult to study that. And of course, many students say that I don't have interest in mathematics. Napoleon Hill has written a book in which he says interest can be artificially created. Say, for example, a student feels that he doesn't have interest in mathematics. The technique which Napoleon Hill is saying is that go somewhere, stand alone, maybe in the wilderness where nobody is listening to you, and shout aloud, I like mathematics, I like mathematics, I like mathematics. Do it for 1,000 times. And when you come back, your mind will start telling, I like mathematics. But now I don't know whether you can get such a place where go alone and stand and shout. But you can do it in the mind. I have tried that technique. If I don't like something, I tell silently to my mind. You can talk to my mind. Anybody can talk to your mind. If you don't know how to, you try it today. Just talk to your mind without voice that I like mathematics. I like mathematics. You talk 1,000 times, then your mind will reverberate saying that I like mathematics. This is a technique which the students can do. It's a mental tuning technique. If you don't like chemistry, speak silently to you 1,000 times, maybe 10,000 times that I like chemistry. Your mind will orient to like chemistry. It's a simple technique which you can do. Then another thing is your level of motivation. Maybe example, today is the Science Day, National Science Day. C.V. Raman invented the Raman effect on this day. That is why today is called the Science Day. On 28th of February, he invented the Raman effect, which is basically a physics theory which says that phase difference is induced by certain liquids, especially the organic liquids. When light is passing through or reflecting by it, phase difference occurs, and so the color may change. He has done all these things by his own motivation. He has not gone abroad. He has not purchased any foreign equipments. He has done by intrinsic capacity and internal resources only. So he was highly motivated. So if anyone is motivated, say a student feels that I want to be a great astrophysicist, naturally he will study any subjects related to astrophysics, maybe astronomy and physics. He will study. He will start studying. So one technique is like that. I used this technique long back. Long back, I was not knowing anything about cricket, and every one of my friends were saying talking about cricket in the hostel. So I thought I should learn cricket. So I just showed off myself that I am highly interested in cricket. So whenever somebody is talking about cricket, I started saying some nook and corners about cricket, and slowly started reading books about cricket, and I learned everything about cricket. So because I artificially created that motivation, this is also possible. Why I'm telling this is motivation can be genuine, can be inborn, and if you are not having it, you can create it. Okay. And this say any subject, and some subjects, students dislike because of the teachers. Say if a teacher is good looking, sometimes the student may like that subject. If a teacher is soft spoken, some days that student may like that subject. And of course, in my school days, I liked Malayalam the highest, because the Malayalam teacher was very much personal. He used to come and motivate. You come and speak somewhere, you come and write somewhere. So that teacher I liked the most. So my desire in the school days was to become a Malayalam teacher, because that teacher had an impact on my mind. So similarly, if there's a very good teacher, say chemistry teacher, who can introduce some Nobel laureates to the students, many of the students will feel like becoming chemists. Say if you can talk about the inventions of Marie Curie, maybe many students would like to go to chemistry. So these things can help in studying them better that subject. So teachers have got a very good influence on the student liking a subject or disliking a subject. And if the student likes a subject, the throttle of that bottle will open. This is the difference. The throttle of that bottle will open. Anything chemistry will go into their mind and they can reproduce anytime. There is no block. Otherwise, the mental block is there. This is one mechanism which we have to do. And now, whatever you are studying, make meaningful. Meaningful in the sense, don't study for the sake of studying. If you are studying something, try to understand. For example, when I was doing my post graduation at Bombay, I used to hear the students saying, the BTech students at IIT saying, that person is a funda person, that person is a high tech person, like that. What do you mean by the funda person? I understood that term there only. What they mean by the funda person is that person starts from the very fundamentals of the subject. So he knows clearly what is what. Whereas a high tech person will know so many things and reproduce in the exam and get some marks. But if you ask some doubt, he is not able to clear. So all the students will go to these funda people. Funda people means who know the fundamentals clear. They are the best teachers. So fundamentals, if people are thorough about, students will gain an interest. So if teachers are present in this group, I tell the teachers, you first clarify the fundamentals to the students. Advanced things they'll study themselves. Teachers have to be facilitators. So if the teachers can bring the student to the fundamental concept, the student will develop an interest in that subject and their memory will work better. So this is how memory can be improved by that technique. Then create associations. Associations in the sense, when you are studying something, say you want to study botany, create an association with the plants in your garden. So you will naturally study better. I'm not telling that story here. I used to tell a story of a person who just passed the SSLC, just with just pass mark, became the principal of a reputed college by such association in plants. That is possible. Then relate what you are learning to something you already know. Say, for example, you are studying about chemistry. You know sodium chloride is being used in your kitchen. Why sodium chloride is salty? Whether all chlorides are salty. Like this, you can inspire some thoughts. Whether there are some chlorides which are not salty. Whether all chlorides are, potable quality, or whether some chlorides are, poisons. Like that, if you can inspire some thoughts in you, that interest in the subject will be more, and your study will become meaningful. This type of study will memorize better, and that will construct your own knowledge level, so that memorizing will become a part of the brain, a natural duty of the brain than a forced deal. And another thing is, do learn actively. Don't learn for the sake of learning. My father has told me to learn. Don't learn like that. My mother said you should get up at 4 o'clock. You learn. Don't learn. Learn things by getting involved in it. Students, please keep in mind, you are learning not for your father, not for your mother. It's for you only. Learning has got two advantage. You become knowledgeable, and that knowledge is saleable in this world. And that knowledge will bring you better environment, better comfort, and sometimes wealth, health, everything. So learning is for ourselves. It's not for father or mother. This is a concept which I have to. Many people used to ask me whether I taught my children. I never taught my children because my children are seeing me. I'm studying every time, or my wife is studying everything every time. So the children tend to study themselves. So this is a lesson for parents. You don't have to tell them study, study, study. You show something. Your role models show something which they would like to imbibe and imitate. And remember, teachers also like this. Say, for example, when I was a school student, our Malayalam teacher used to come and tell the stories of epics. So by the time I completed my 10th standard, I read all the epics. It was the influence of that teacher. Okay, so if some teacher can introduce what Pierre Curie did in physics, definitely by the time the student completes that study, he'll be interested in knowing what else could be done in that area. So memory will better. So teachers have got an influence on memorizing the things, and then obviously in storing the memory, you should also keep in mind once in a while you should test it. Actually, the school college examinations are for testing that what you have stored in the memory. So you yourself can do it at the end of a day or at the end of a week. Just try to recollect. It's called recapitulation. Try to recollect what you have stored in your mind. So that recapitulation will bring you so many ideas. Then only you will remember that you forgot also something. So you can look back to it. Always the recapitulation will bring to you some ideas that, okay, oh, that I cannot recollect now. Maybe maybe within 7 days or 7 hours, you would have forgotten many things. So you can go back to that, and if you go back to that and read it again, maybe it will get stored permanently in your memory. Twice or thrice after a long gap, you are revisiting something you have studied, your memory will be more effective. That is the advantage of it. So another thing is, don't wait for the school or college to conduct the test. A very good student conducts the testing by themselves. The school or college is testing your memory for grading you, but you are testing your memory for assessing yourself, where you stand. So you can have self-imposed test purpose. I used to have it in my young days, self-imposed test purpose. Take some question, try answering it. Nowadays it is very easy because the internet gives you a lot of questions. You don't have to make a question paper. Try answering it and see what is the score. You only will know, your parents will not know, whereas your school grade card and college grade card your parents may see. So you have a pressure on that. When you conduct a test for yourself, you can assess yourself where you stand. So that self-test will be always better. Do that. And then your attitude is very important. If you are doing something forced by someone, the output will be very, very poor. So the attitude is high in the sense, if your attitude is pro some subject, you automatically will learn that subject. So show off that I like that subject. Don't tell anybody. As a student, I have heard students saying, I don't like maths, I don't like physics, I don't like chemistry, like that. If somebody says like that, they are going to be eternal enemies for that subject, and those subjects will be your lifelong enemy. So don't declare like that. Maybe you can say some slight difficulty I'm having in mathematics. I'm going to change my pattern of study and I'll come up with a better system of studying it. Remember, by changing the system of study, by changing the method of study, you can crack any subject. There is no subject like that which you cannot crack. Only the method of approach has to be changed. And of course, distribute the learning. Distribute the learning means don't study one subject continuously. Better you study one subject only 1 hour. After 1 hour, you change the subject. Here also the parents please not. Parents want this child to study continuously the same subject, 2 hours, 3 hours like that. No, it is better there's a change, and that change, say, for example, if you listen the same song for 2 hours, what will happen? Never in life you will listen to that song. So don't do that. Change the subject and come back to the subject again. That is possible. And of course, if you cannot change the subject, you take a break of 5 to 10 minutes studying or reading or seeing something different. That also can make your attention better. And of course, there are some techniques like the mnemonics techniques. Mnemonics techniques means you can have some sentences which are no rhyming sentences. You can say like 30 days as September, April, June, and November. You would have studied like that. So that's a mnemonic technique. Or example, you can use some abbreviations. We used to do that in our BTech studies. Everything we used to abbreviate. 10 words you have to study. You will abbreviate. A simple example: National Aeronautics and Space Administration. You want to remember. That is a American Space Agency. You can just remember NASA, NASA. It's an acronym which you are using. So such acronyms and such mnemonic techniques will you, or even you can go for acrostics techniques. I think in school teachers will be teaching the color combination like Vibgyor. When you go higher in medicine and all, I have seen medical students using a lot of acrostics, because without acrostics they cannot remember the long term. Say for example, you want to listen, you want to remember the word Komita Gotsuda Swane Baso Pasnosi. Very difficult to remember. But if you remember KGB, you can easily remember. This is how the acrostics techniques do work. And then use visual methods. Imagine. So when Kofi Annan took over as the UN Secretary General, it was difficult for me to remember his name. I don't know what is the reason. So I remembered MGR taking a cup of coffee. This is what is called a visual method. MGR was known as Annan and coffee in his hand. So MGR with a cup of coffee, I could easily remember the name of Kofi Annan. This technique can be used for studying things by attaching the mnemonics. Then, of course, try with different study materials. What I say is, don't try the same study material. People have got, most of the students just study the notes given by the teachers. That is the worst thing you can do. You can read, but remember, notes are always an incomplete version. The notes will not open you to the world. The notes will open you to the school level. So always read something beyond what the teachers give. Teacher will be telling you so and so so many names of textbooks, etc., which you can follow. So after seeing these slides, now I have to go to the other side, which is how to write better. I've been telling how to improve the memory for storing so many things. Memorization techniques still more are there. I don't want to talk all those things, but basically I've told you how to memorize the things effectively. Now we will. The second part is more important because how to write. This is where students do fail. I'll go through that also, and then only I'll come back to, because you know that if I go on talking this, you'll be in difficulty. I'll talk about the writing techniques at the end. We'll come back to the slides. But I don't know whether that break technique will be used, because now itself. Do one thing, Bindu, please see these many slides from 11 onwards. We'll cover immediately. We'll give a break to the participants. Then I'll come back to the writing techniques. Writing techniques are more important because scoring is based on writing, not on memorizing alone. Memorizing is the background. Please show the 11th slide onwards.
Sure, sir. And I will also share our Facebook link here. So all their feedback is important. After this session, I would request you to please go visit our Facebook page and give your valuable comments on that as well. Now we will share the slides, sir.
Please show the 11th slide onwards.
I have shared it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's visible, right?
And that is the 10th one. You share the 11th one.
The STM, right?
This is 10th, no? Show the 11th. Okay. This is what we are going to discuss hereafter. Show the next. So this is what can affect your memory. These are the things which affect the memory. See the next slide. This is one thing which I missed while explaining. Learn from general to specific. So what I say normally is, first read, when you get a book, read. Somebody else is presenting. Abdul Aziz, please close. Okay. Somebody else is presenting. Please come back to. Please pin your presentation. Bindu's presentation you can pin. Somebody else started presentation and it has gone away. Please come back to it.
Yeah, now the presentation is there. I hope you can see.
But it is not pinned. You can pin on that presentation.
Okay.
Yes, now it is.
Yes. Okay.
So before studying, if you want to study a book, the general to specific is the system we have to follow. First, just go through the book in a browsing speed. Within 10 or 15 minutes, you just see what are the entire things in the book. Just skip the pages one by one. While skipping the pages one by one, you will see which are the pages you have to know. So note down those pages and then come back to that pages and study in a medium speed. Medium speed means around 100 to 200 words per minute is a medium speed. Browsing speed is 2 to 300 words per minute minimum. So around 100 words per minute is a second option. Browsing the medium speed, and while reading at the medium speed, those pages which are marked, you will understand which are the things to be studied very specifically. Then come back to that and read very slowly. That is textbook reading style, very slowly. That means in a book, you may require only 10 or 20 pages to be studied. In a 400 pages book, textbook, you have to study only 20 pages effectively. And those 20 pages you have to isolate, mark, either you can underline or you can put in another sheet what are the pages to be studied and focus that to study. That is the best technique for studying textbooks. Okay, see the next. This I have told, make the study meaningful. Don't waste your time, try to understand what is the meaning of it. Only understanding the meaning your study will be effective. See the next slide. Create associations. This also I told. Associations with something known to you. Okay, next one please. Learn actively. Learn actively in the sense, don't have a study for the sake of study. Get yourself involved in the study. See the next one. Avoid distractions as much possible. Switch off your phone,
Super.
your TV, everything when you are studying. Next one, please. This is what I call monitoring or self-testing. Test yourself. Instead of the teachers waiting to test for you, you can test yourself where you stand and improvise based on that. Please. Check your attitude and anxiety. Keep away from anxiety. I told that make your mind balanced. Keep away all distractions. See the next slide. Do some ideas into concrete examples. Say for example, when you are studying some theory, connect it to something which is real life. That will give you a better association with the real life situation and memory. See the next one. I told distribute learning. Don't start learning the same thing. Distribute learning. Learn something, then change over to something else, then change over to something else like that. Okay, next one, please. Okay, same what I've told. Remember something else. Change over to something else. Okay, next slide, please. This is also same thing. Don't study the same thing continuously. Next slide, please. I told how to use the mnemonics and memory techniques. Okay, using acronyms. See the next one. Using acrostics means first letter of the word, and then using visual methods, exaggerating an image to what you're aware of, something like that. Okay, next one, please. Don't keep a sequence for study. Break the sequence. Sequence will make a monotony. Monotony in the study is not advisable. Break the sequence. That will make the study more enjoyable. Next slide, please. Using the memory techniques, etc. This is what I have been telling at last. You can use all the memory techniques for study purpose. Now I'll talk to you about better writing techniques. Now come back to the presentation. I'll talk to you about better writing techniques. Now at the end we'll have the presentation. Okay. First thing in the examination you should have is which the students are lacking. Whatever I am going to say hereafter, I'll be slower because that is what fetches you the mark. Whatever I have been talking so far is methods of study which teachers would have told you. But what I am going to say hereafter, mostly teachers may not have told you. That is more important from my point of view, scoring the marks. Scoring the mark is more important. Now, whatever way you studied, if you score mark, that is very relevant. First thing is students should have a sense of proportion. Sense of proportion means if an examination is for 100 marks, say for 3 hours. 3 hours means 180 minutes. An examination is for 100 marks, 180 minutes. Then keep in mind, 1 mark is equal to 1.8 minutes. This students forget always. Divide the number of minutes by number of marks. Decide how many minutes, how many marks. And that you have to keep exactly, because in most of the answer sheets I see, because I've been doing this for nearly 38 years, I'm seeing that 1 mark question they will write in 1 page. 5 marks question they will write in half a page. Why? Because disproportionate assignment of time. They always keep in mind the evaluator, the examiner will see that the marks are proportional to the time allotted. And the time allotted, the writing should be proportional to it. So this is what is called the sense of proportion. Many students, I think half of the students are not having the sense of proportion. Some students spend so much time on small questions. If a question is 1 mark, even if you write 10 pages on it, you are going to get maximum 1 mark only, not more than that. Whatever you write. But if a question is 10 marks, if you write 1 page, you may get 1.5 marks. you write 2 pages, you may get 3 marks. So if you write, say 6 pages, you may get 10 marks. Quite possible. So this is a sense which every student should have, which students are missing. I don't know whether the teachers instruct the students this point, but this is what I've always seen. Not only in 10th and see, right from school level, I used to evaluate because my father was a school teacher. I used to evaluate the purpose which he brings at home and then give him and then ask him to value again and tell me what is the difference. I used to do this exercise. So I know from the school level itself, this is one thing which the students don't have it. Second thing is the first impression is the best impression. The first page of your answer sheet should not be shabby. You should write, even though your handwriting is not that impressive, the first page you make it impressive by writing a bit slowly and using the correct words. Because the first page, in 99% of the cases, the first page makes an impression. This everybody has to be careful. I know that students cannot have very good handwriting always, but you also have to improve your handwriting. Maybe after the age of 50 and all, your muscles may get weaker and the handwriting may go a bit wrong. But in the young days, school days and college days, your muscles are fully strong. Your handwriting depends on how much you write, how much you write and study, how much you write the copybook. All these things are very important. And of course, choosing the right words also very important, especially the first 1 or 2 pages. And the next thing is, most of the students do not give margins in the answer paper. And being myself an evaluator, if I see that the student is not giving margin for putting the marks, margins are for putting the marks or putting some comments or reading carefully. Nowadays, marks are not put in answer papers. But if there is a margin, while opening the page, you can see the page fully. If there is no margin in writing, reading from the left end will be very difficult. You know that teachers are having very less time to read. This the student should keep in mind. The answer paper which you are writing in 3 hours, the teachers have to read in 15 minutes. It's a circus. Fast reading only it is. So if you are not writing properly, they have got an inborn tendency to reduce the marks. They will hate your answer paper. Once they hate your answer paper, they feel that you are a troublemaker. So don't do that. So give a good margin. And of course, so many more things I have to tell in this. Also keep in mind that the margins will improve your visibility of the paper while skipping the paper. And don't think that the teacher will take 1 or 2 hours to read your answer paper. No, the teachers have to value somewhere between 25 to 50 purpose a day, depending on the board or the university. Even if it is 25 purpose in 6 hours, how much it is? In 6 hours, 25 purpose means roughly, mostly they'll get only 5 hours. 1 hour they'll lose in tabulation work. In 1 hour, 5 minutes. That means in one paper, maximum gets 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, they have to add up the marks. They have to write the marks. It takes away 5 marks, 5 minutes. So only 15 minutes they'll get for the answer paper. You read, you write for 3 hours. Keep in mind. Most of the exams are 3 hours or 4 hours like that. So 3 hours answer paper, you yourself will take at least 30, 40 minutes to read it. The teachers have to read it within 15 minutes. So if you are not doing neatly, you only are the losers. Teachers are not the losers. So keep your answer paper such that they can fastly read it and put the marks. It's for you only. That is why margin is to be required. And after every line, you should give a sufficient gap. Why? Because if you don't give this gap between each line, it's not your paper. You are not paying for the paper. I think all over the world, the examination papers are being paid by the board or the university. You have to pay only an examination fee. So whether you use 30 sheets or 40 sheets or 50 sheets, it's of no concern. But some cases, limited sheets are there. In that case also, but I think in all the board and universities, even if it is a bound volume sheet is given, the number of sheets will be more than enough, or they'll give additional sheets. So don't worry about the number of sheets, but don't give excessive gap. Excessive gap in the sense, read give sufficiently readable gap. If you write only 4 lines a page, people will feel that you are trying to fool them. No, you can write around 15 lines in a page in an A4 sheet. Around 15 to 20 lines is more than enough. Don't try to cram. Even if you write 12 or 13, doesn't matter. But it should not be less than 10 and it should not be more than 20. So make sure that you are writing 10 to 20 lines in a page so that the teacher can read it properly. That will improve your chance of scoring marks. And another thing is, many times I have seen that the answer is there, but the question number is not written. This is from real life example. The If the question number is not written, the teacher cannot give the marks. Why? Because only against question number teachers can assign mark. Your answer may be right, but you will lose that marks. You have written an answer for a 5 marks question, but you have not put the question number. What happens? You will lose that 5 marks even if that answer deserves 5 marks. One more thing is, while putting the question number, be very specific. Say if question A is having question A, 1A and 1B, if one you just write instead of A or B, the teacher doesn't have any obligation to put the marks. Some teachers may read and sometimes put the mark, but while fast reading, they may even skip it. So, for example, if a question number is 1.1.A, you should write it fully. If a question number is 1.2.A or 1.2.B, very specifically put that question number, otherwise you will lose the marks. Okay, so this is the thing which I don't know whether the teachers do explain these things, but the students must know it. Then the next thing is, don't skip something the paper. Maybe the order of choice you can choose on your like. Maybe after question number 1, you can write question number 4. But remember to put the question number correctly. But I hear many students saying that I wrote 7 questions out of 10. 3 I skipped. Remember, even if that 3 questions you attempted something, you would have got some marks. Write only things which you know. Don't try to bluff. But even if you simply write something which you know, say for example, there is a question on periodic table in chemistry in the school syllabus. You don't know what is the periodic table arrangement, etc. But you are just saying, you know that periodic table is an arrangement based on atomic numbers or atomic weight, whatever you know. You just write a statement. Periodic table is an arrangement of the elements in chemistry based on the atomic numbers. Definitely, you will get, if it is 5 marks, you may get 2 marks. You haven't drawn the periodic table. The question may be even to draw the periodic table, but the teacher who values the paper knows that you know what is periodic table. You couldn't write it, you couldn't draw it because sufficient time was not there, but you get a consideration. So make it a point, even if you are unable to write a question answer in full, whatever you know, don't bluff. Don't say that periodic table is something which gives the calendar of the year. No, because calendar is also a period. Don't bluff like that. If you know something, reproduce it and try to answer as many questions asked. But students have also got another technique. They answer excess. For example, in part A of a question paper, it is told that write 3 questions in part A. Some people will answer 4 or 5 questions in part A to show that they know that also, but of no use. The teacher is given the clear instruction. The evaluator is given the clear instruction. If there are only 3 questions to be answered in part A, the 4th question will be ignored. The norm is that first 3 should be considered, but rarely some teachers will consider the best 3. That is up to the teacher. But the rule is always that if 3 questions only to be answered, the first 3 is to be considered. I have seen even BTech students and MTech students and PhD scholars doing the same mistake. Don't do. At school level, this mistake is very common. So don't do that mistake, because you know that it's of no use. You are wasting your time and energy. Maybe part A you could have written 3 and you could have written part B also 3. Instead of that part A you answered 5, and by the time you answered 1 in part B, you lose your time. Don't do that mistake. Do 3 in part A and do 3 in part B. Another thing is, whatever you can write point wise, everything you may not be able to write point wise. But say for example, list the qualities of a good medicine. It's a question. Or list the earthquake zones available in Kerala, or list the number of elements which are good for, or list the halides in the periodic table, something like that. So don't try to explain those things. You are asked only to list. Don't explain. Just list it. Many students, while listing, I have seen they write paragraphs wise on that. No, list needs only the point wise answer, and that pointing you can show by an asterisk mark, or 1, 2, 3 you can write, or put a hash mark like that. Any marking is good for listing, but remember, unnecessary blah blah writing on the answer will not fetch you any extra mark. Okay, but if you are asked to explain, there are so many terms. In the Bloom's taxonomy, if you go through, hundreds of such terms are there which are wrongly understood. But if it is explained, there is nothing wrong. You can explain each, but marks will be more. Okay. Then another thing is, if you know an answer correctly, try to explain in a comprehensive way. Don't use any abbreviation the answer. Don't use abbreviation. You know, you feel that the teacher is knowing that abbreviation. Maybe sometimes the teacher may be knowing, but that the teacher may be sometimes from a different geographical location, from a different cultural background. This acronym which you are using or this abbreviation which you are using may not be known to the teacher. So use comprehensive statements and write fully. That this mistake so many students do. Another thing is, as far as for university examinations, don't reproduce the terms in your class notes. Board examination or university examination, better reproduce the things in your textbooks. Textbooks are published matter standard. Class notes are not published matter. This is a private property of your teacher and you. Maybe mistakes are there. So it is better, don't reproduce from the class notes, reproduce equations, definitions, etc. from standard textbooks. And then in the first page itself, I told by writing clearly, you can seek the attention of the examiner. That creates a euphoria, a feeling of well-being in the evaluator. They'll give better marks in the coming pages. Another thing is, whatever important points are there, you can put an underline. Underline, of course, some students have got a nature of collecting another ink color and underlining. But with the same ink pen, you can underline. You don't have to, because taking another color and writing it, again putting the pen back will take a lot of time. So don't do that. The same pen which you are using, you can underline, because whatever is the color, underlining can be easily understood. Okay. Then wherever some sketches are necessary, this comes especially in science subjects, engineering subjects, or things like that. Wherever, say for example, the atom structure is asked in chemistry, structure of an atom. Instead of writing 2-3 paragraphs, just give the diagram given by Niels Bohr. Your answer will be complete. Even 2 sentences can explain this is the structure of an atom. You save a lot of time and you get better marks by supplementing with a sketch. So wherever possible, supplement with a sketch. Sketches talk more than words. And then, as I told in the beginning itself, proportionate assignment of time is very important. And then another thing is, whenever you go through the question, identify the specific word given in the question, whether the word is list or enumerate or define or state or give diagram or analyze or explain or illustrate or outline or trace. Such words will be there. You have to be very careful about these words. Why? Because if it is compare these two things, instead of comparison, if you write an essay on both, of no use. Especially if it's a comparison between, say, compare organic and inorganic material, you can just make a table. One side organic and one side inorganic. Say organic material will have C, H, N, S, like that. You can just write. On the inorganic one, you can write not necessarily these elements. Like that, you can make a comparison. It will give a better idea about that. And then the next thing is, I told the word you have to clearly, based on the word you should say what is to be written and what is to be analyzed. And whenever there are some argument words like proof, justify, etc., you should justify it. Say for example, you are asked to justify the Homo sapiens are the only wise living beings on earth. Whatever you write should be to justify it. Don't say that I am justifying it, but you have to justify by your statement. This is very necessary in some of the answers. And then whenever there are some assessment words like criticize, evaluate, interpret, etc., you have to be very careful that you are doing only that purpose. When criticize something is the question, you should not go on appreciating only. You have to see both positive and negative. This mistake I have seen in many of the critically evaluate. You will miss that. Okay. So these are the things you have to be careful about while answering. And remember, each of these points will bring you marks because teachers are doing this in a continuous way for years and years, and they would have tuned to the system by which these techniques which I have told now, it is inbuilt in them. They may not be knowing it perfectly, but unknowingly they'll doing it. And now there are some things in practical exams and oral exams which have to be followed. Maybe while showing the slides, I'll just explain them because time is too much. I have exceeded more than 20 minutes. So while showing the slides, I'll just explain that oral exam and Viva exam. Oral exam, which is also called the Viva OC, and the practical exam, I'll just explain. So Bindu, please show that slides from
Sure,
where we
sir.
have shown, so that quickly we'll skip it. Next slide. Okay. So the better writing techniques which I have told, allowed proportionate time, keeping neat, better handwriting, providing margins, words neatly, giving a gap after each line and each answer, mention question numbers properly. Next slide. Underlining important words, provide spacing between words and lines. Each paragraph you can have 10 to 15 lines. New paragraph should be, this I think I forgot to mention, new paragraph should have a small gap to the previous one, and a paragraph should be having a new idea. The same thing you need not split into many paragraphs, but whenever you are writing something new, that should go to the next paragraph. Then complete the whole paper. That means answer all the questions required. Okay. Then point wise. Next slide. Resort to textbooks. Then the teacher gets only 10 to 20 minutes per paper, and they have to read 1 to 4 pages per minute. See, they are doing a circus. And taking the attention of the evaluator first itself is the most important thing. Okay. Then supplement questions with sketches wherever possible. In literary and such things, you can supplement with quotations. In mathematics, you can supplement with graphs. Okay. Then time should be allotted properly. Attend only required questions. Don't attend excess questions. See the next slide. Okay, this you can skip because these are the words you have to identify. Next slide. Again, explanation words. If these words are asked, you have to write in detail. Discuss, analyze, explain, illustrate, outline, trace. Don't write a single sentence. Write a paragraph. Next one. Comparison words. Comparison words, whenever such things are coming, differentiate or compare, better you write in 2 columns and show the contrast between them. Okay, next slide. Argument words. Argument words, you have to be critical. You have to justify, or you have to write for or against it. That is it. Especially mathematics, prove something will be there. So you should prove either it is wrong or it is right. Next slide. Then these are assessment words. Assessment words should be, your opinion should come in assessment words. Whenever an assessment word, criticize, evaluate, interpret, review, or recommend is coming, your idea should come into that, not only the textbook idea. What you understood by that, that should come. Next slide. This is about oral exam. Oral exam means YOC. These are standard things which you have to do in the YOC. You should have a confidence and your look should be confident. You should answer quickly if you know. If you don't know, tell plainly that, sir, ma'am, I don't know it. Don't try to make wild guess. You can guess, but only positive guess. Then it is better that the teachers to ask only a fixed number of questions. I've seen the YOC. To some students, the teacher will ask 10 questions. To some students, 20 questions like that. No. Teachers, it is better to ask fixed number of questions. That is for the teachers. Then if teachers are asking you a specific area of interest, you should study a specific area of interest and present yourself. Don't say that I know this and then don't bluff when being asked on that subject. So you should choose an area which you have really studied, and don't try to mislead saying that this is like that, like this, like that. If you don't know, try to say that I'm not sure or I'm not comfortable with that. Leave that question. Don't say that you know everything. Next one, next slide. When going for practical exam, the first thing is very important. Before going for the practical or lab exam, whether it is chemistry lab or physics lab or mechanics lab, whatever it is, before going for the exam, 1 or 2 days before, you just go to the lab. No teacher or no staff will block you. You can just say that I want to see the apparatus or machines and all. Just go there and just remember what things you have done. While seeing equipment or apparatus, you will remember it easily. That is the best way of recollecting what you have done in the past. And then only go through the observation book and record book, etc. Okay. Next slide. For performance and demo exams for arts and all, the best way is perform. Try at home. Do it yourself at home. Okay, now coming to the last slide. Now, if anybody has got any question, I know I have exceeded the time. Either you can ask orally or put in the chat box. Maybe maximum 5 minutes we'll spend for that. Because you should not go away without. Just if you want to clarify something, either put in the chat box or ask me directly. I know that I've been a bit fast today because the session should have been 2 hours. We chose it to be 1 hour, so I just wanted to cover it up very fast, and I don't know whether everybody could follow it. But anyway, if you're having something, some clarification, you can just ask me right now.
And
And most of these things will not be available. Pardon?
I'm sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt you, sir. I was just telling that I have put the feedback form and our Facebook link on the chat box. So we would like to get the feedback from the participants both on our Facebook page and on the Google form link.
And since these things will not be available in any textbooks as such, the recording will be sent to all of you. You can just rewind. That is why each slide I have shown on the recording so that you can read it. You can halt it there and read it perfectly. Okay. Even if you couldn't listen to my speech effectively.
So,
No questions?
if anyone have any questions, you can
Pardon?
please put it in the chat box. And just telling participants, if you have any questions, you can please mention that in the chat box, and it'll be answered. We will give. I don't think there are any more questions because you explain things comprehensively enough, so there is no doubt left in anybody's mind.
I think that may not be the first reason because instead of 1 hour, we have taken nearly 1.5 hours. So, quitting mindset would have come to all.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes. Tell me, Abhishek.
Yeah, sir, I am studying LLM, master's level degree
Right.
in University of Mumbai. So, sir, you were mentioning
Mumbai
about
University, very good.
number of pages the students use to answer specific questions. But nowadays, many universities they
Right.
have restricted the number of pages for the total paper to be
Right.
written.
Right.
So, in that case,
I've seen that many of the universities have specified the number of pages to say 28, 32, like that. Some booklets are being given by the university, but I have gone through many of these booklets. I feel that if a person is writing properly 10 to 20 lines in a page or 15 lines in a page and in a very good handwriting, all these pages may not be required. Some pages will be still extra. But I have seen that some students do write in a way which the crow moves out over the sand. So one page will have only 5 or 6 lines or maybe 10 lines. They make so big alphabets and all. So it may not be sufficient for them with these pages. So I suggest that such students may revert back to a standard form of writing. They should be given a copybook to write and learn better. And of course, in some universities, the number of pages are less. Definitely, you should request the university to increase the pages. Because I have been working in 3 universities so far. In one university only, I got a request that the number of pages should be increased, and we increased it. That is possible. The controller of exam can easily do it. They assume that these many pages are sufficient.
okay, sir, thanks a lot, sir.
But right.
So if there are no more questions, I guess we will wind up. I have given 3 links on the chat box. One is for the National Science Day quiz. I request the participants to please attempt that. Anyone who scores 50% and above marks will be issued an e-certificate. And next link is our Facebook page. We want your feedback. And that is very much important.
There's a question. There's a question which has come from Shija Kayar. Teachers are correcting according to the answer key. How could be it possible that all the points be included in it? If the points which are not in the answer key given, will they don't give marks? Say teachers are given the answer key as a guideline, but the teachers know more than the answer key. Most of the teachers, they will be postgraduate in that subject. Their knowledge span is much more than the answer key. The answer key gives the minimum requirement for the answer. And if a student is writing the better answer than the answer key, they'll definitely get better marks. They'll be so impressed by the student, their rating of the answer sheet will be better. So if you know something, if you really know something more than what is given in your text or something, there is nothing wrong in writing as apportioning the time, definitely it will fetch you a better mark. Because the teachers normally, on average marks, average answer teacher may give 60%. A good answer teacher may give 80%. An excellent answer a teacher may give 100%. Even though the answer key is same, the answer standards may be different. So if you know better, you write it better. You'll definitely get better marks. Though all the points are there, a bad answer may fetch you very low marks. Even if points are there, the points alone, say many questions are not points alone. Many questions are explanation of the points also. So there the scoring will be better. And just reading the hint of the answer, an experienced teacher will know immediately whether the student is a knowledgeable student or not. That comes by heuristics. Teachers know that technique. Maybe in the first 1 or 2 years they may not know. But after valuing the purpose for 1 or 2 years, teacher will know the mindset of the student immediately. So that is our profession. And they are doing it daily basis. Okay.
So there is another question, not question, it's a comment. Children often complain that they knew the tips, but seeing the question papers, they used to forget everything. So
yeah, that is because they don't practice it. That is what I told. They conduct their own examinations. A good student put some questions himself or herself, answer it and value it. So I think in the course of study, I told you that while I was in school, my father was a school teacher, and I used to value those answer books. It gave me a lot of insight. Though later I started putting question papers for myself based on that. So even if your parent is not a teacher, you can put questions for yourself, value it, and see where you stand. And I tell you one more case which I told. When I was engaging a subject for the MTech students at one college, I asked them to value the answer sheets. Okay, and later I valued the answer sheet. I found that the marks which I have given to them was more than what they gave to themselves. I kept this in separate sheets, and that gave them an insight how they get marks. So if teachers are present, I suggest that once in a while the answer purpose, test purpose and all, you give to the students and ask them to value and put the marks in a separate sheet, not on the answer sheet. And then you value it again and compare it and tell them what is the output of that valuation. That will give them an insight. Moreover, that you will teach them how to value the answer sheet. If they know how to value the answer sheet, their scoring will be better. That is one advisable day. Okay. I think questions are over.
yeah, questions are over. So I think we'll call it a day.
Okay. Thank you all very much for listening to it, and you can send the recording to all the participants
Sure, sir.
so they can go through it if at all they like to have. Okay.
Our first 3 sessions of our first phase of programs for academic counseling and training is over. So now next session will be on April 4th after the exam, the +2 and 10th examinations. That will be based on career choices. How can students choose the careers based on their interest? And then students who are interested in doing engineering and who are looking forward for writing KEAM examinations, we will be giving KEAM training or training on the KEAM entrance from April 6th onwards. So those things will be happening only from the month of April. So thank you very much for being a part of us for last 3 sessions and spending your valuable time, especially on a Sunday. And teachers of OSS, they have spent their time. Today is a working day and they have taken that much of time from and then spent with us. Thank you very much for that. And I thank Mahadevan sir for giving such an insightful and wonderful session, which was definitely useful for not only for students but for the teachers too. Thank you, sir. And I thank all the staff, the management of Ahalya Group of Institutions and teachers and students of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology for extending all support in spreading the word about this program. Thank you all. And I thank all the participants for spending their time with us. Stay continuously. I see that most of the participants have been continuously attending all the sessions that we have offered in this series. Thank you all for your time. Thank you very much. And I would request you to please fill the feedback form that I have posted on the chat box, and also give your comments on our Facebook link too. Because every session we have organizing is based on your feedback, and we would like to improvise what we are doing so that coming sessions would be a value addition to the participants too. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nasir, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So we'll call it a day. Thank you all.
Thank you.